In 52 BCE, one of the greatest military strategists in history, Julius Caesar, made a decision that defied all logic. He commanded 50,000 Roman soldiers to construct their own tomb. They would find themselves trapped between two formidable forces, 80,000 enemies behind the walls of a fortress and another, 300,000 approaching from outside. Consider that for a moment 50,000 Romans voluntarily entrapping themselves between 380,000 adversaries, with no escape route, no chance to retreat, merely walls they had built with their own hands, sealing themselves between two armies that desired nothing more than to eliminate every last Roman. The destiny of Western civilization hinged on this audacious gamble. By the end of this discussion, you will grasp why Caesar, the most brilliant military mind of his time, chose to entomb his entire army, and how this seemingly suicidal plan ultimately forged the most powerful empire the world has ever known. I'll unveil 3 pivotal insights that will alter your perception of ancient warfare forever. First, the engineering marvel that transformed a potential death trap into a lethal weapon. Second, the moment when Caesar personally averted total destruction for his army. And third, how the pride of a surrendering chieftain influenced the course of European history. But first, let's consider the absurdity of it all. Why would a commander willingly trap his own retreat? What engineering brilliance allowed 50,000 men to withstand 380,000 enemies? How did Caesar predict that Vercingetorix would surrender before his troops faced starvation? How could he even supply 50,000 men while they erected 2 massive walls? How did the Romans manage to fight on 2 fronts simultaneously without descending into chaos? And what personal vendetta compelled Caesar to gamble everything at this hilltop fortress in Gaul? To appreciate this madness, we must examine the dire situation that Caesar had engineered for himself. If you're intrigued by the untold stories of history's most pivotal battles, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic war narratives. Click the bell to never miss another tale of impossible military victories. Let's travel back to Gaul, where Caesar was about to redefine the rules of warfare forever. In 52 BCE, Gaul was a powder keg primed for ignition. For 6 years, Julius Caesar had been conquering tribes one after another, racking up victory after victory. Yet conquest is not equivalent to control, and the Gallic tribes were reaching their last straw. Enter Vercingetorix, a name that would resonate through history. He wasn't just another tribal leader. The Arverni prince achieved something no other Gallic leader had. He united the once feuding tribes. Imagine ancient enemies setting aside centuries-old blood feuds to confront a common enemy. Caesar's position was more perilous than most recognized. 6 years of victories were meaningless if he couldn't maintain control. Back in Rome, his political rivals circled like vultures, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness. If Caesar faltered or failed, they would strip him of his command. Without his legions and victories, he faced exile or death. This was more than a quest for glory. It was a fight for survival. The Gallic Confederation represented a historic alliance warriors from the Atlantic coast to the Rhine, from the Mediterranean to the English Channel. Diverse languages, gods, and combat styles united by one common motive: hatred for Rome. For the first time, Gaul spoke with a unified voice, and that voice cried out for Roman blood. This is where Caesar's brilliance began to take a dark turn. When his scouts reported on Alesia, other commanders might have chosen to find an alternate target. The fortress sat on a plateau, surrounded by rivers and valleys, boasting natural defenses that made it nearly impregnable. The high ground gave the defenders an overwhelming advantage, rendering an assault akin to madness. Yet Caesar saw something that others overlooked. Vercingetorix had made Alesia his stronghold, amassing 80,000 of his finest warriors behind its formidable walls. He believed he was safe, convinced that Caesar would never dare to attack such a position. That overconfidence would prove to be fatal. The dynamics of power were intriguing. The Romans were occupiers, but they also represented civilization and order against the chaotic nature of their opponents. The Gauls were freedom fighters defending their homeland, yet they were also warriors who practiced human sacrifice and collected enemy heads as trophies. Caesar needed this victory, not merely desired it. His entire career, his life, and his place in history depended on breaking Gallic resistance once and for all. A defeat meant returning to Rome in chains, while a victory could secure his immortality. Vercingetorix needed this victory as well. The independence and very identity of his people were at stake. He had united the tribes through strength and charisma, but such unity was fragile. One significant loss could shatter it. The geography of Alesia was crucial. Two rivers flanked the plateau, whilst hills surrounded the approaches. Any assault would require climbing steep slopes under relentless missile fire. The fortress itself was a masterful feat of Gallic engineering, with walls that had never been breached. Yet the same geography that provided Alesia with strength also made it a potential trap. Once inside, Vercingetorix's army would require supplies, food, water, fodder for their horses. The fortress that shielded them could easily become their prison. When Caesar's scouts first glimpsed Alesia's walls, discretion might have advised retreat. Instead, Caesar commanded 10 legions of Rome's finest soldiers professionals who had been engaged in combat in Gaul for years. Each legion consisted of around 5,000 men, equipped with standardized weapons that made them the most efficient killing machines of the ancient world. The gladius, the scutum, and the pila were tools that had conquered empires. Here's the shocking aspect that often goes unmentioned. Caesar also had 10,000 Germanic cavalry, mercenaries from beyond the Rhine, warriors that Romans had battled against just a few years prior. These wild horsemen, notorious for their brutal tactics, now rode alongside disciplined legionaries, showcasing a pragmatism that made Caesar incredibly dangerous. His inner circle included notable figures of Roman history: Labienus, a tactical genius; Mark Antony, ambitious and eager for glory; and intriguingly, Marcus Brutus, loyally fighting alongside the man he would later assassinate. Imagine the irony in Caesar teaching his eventual murderer about winning impossible battles. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix commanded 80,000 Gallic warriors, but labeling them as an army oversimplifies the reality. This was a confederation of tribal warbands, each possessing distinct equipment, fighting techniques, and levels of discipline. Noble cavalry and armored warriors fought side by side with half-naked berserkers, wielding everything from fine Celtic swords to farming tools repurposed into weapons. Vercingetorix sent messengers to every part of Gaul, summoning one of the largest forces in Gallic history, demanding 250,000 men. Remarkably, the tribes answered the call. The tactical geography became everyone's fixation. The rivers constrained cavalry movement, while the hills created both natural kill zones and blind spots. Every commander meticulously analyzed the approach routes, strategizing their attacks and defenses. Then Caesar made a move that left even his own generals questioning his sanity. Instead of assaulting Alesia or besieging it from a safe distance, he ordered an unprecedented maneuver: the construction of a complete encirclement of the entire plateau, 11 miles of fortifications, trapping Vercingetorix and his warriors inside. However, Vercingetorix had made a crucial miscalculation. He had brought too many men into Alesia. The 80,000 warriors consumed supplies at an alarming rate. Each day of siege resulted in the slaughter of hundreds of cattle, a depletion of tons of grain, and a demand for thousands of gallons of water for both men and horses. The fortress he had chosen for its strength was transforming into a trap. Caesar's pre-battle preparations revealed the brilliance of both commanders. Vercingetorix resorted to scorched earth tactics, burning farms and poisoning wells to deprive Caesar of supplies. Yet Caesar's Germanic cavalry excelled, ranging far and wide to secure food. Small skirmishes erupted daily, and the first significant cavalry battle outside Alesia showcased the brewing conflict. 3,000 Gallic horsemen charged Caesar's positions. The legionaries formed protective squares with overlapping shields and protruding pila, but it was the Germanic cavalry that ultimately triumphed, sweeping around the Gallic flanks with brutal efficiency. The psychological impact was immediate. If the Gallic cavalry could not win on open ground, what hope was there for their infantry? Roman supplies began running dangerously low. Feeding 50,000 men plus 10,000 cavalry required exceptional logistics. With each passing day, construction meant less food was available. Caesar was racing against starvation, working against time to complete the fortifications before his army succumbed. The psychological warfare intensified. The Gallic warriors lined Alesia's walls, shouting insults and flaunting their numbers. They aimed to intimidate the Romans, showcasing the overwhelming enemy forces. Yet Roman discipline held firm. Day after day they labored, ignoring the taunts from beyond the walls. However, Vercingetorix made a fateful error. Instead of keeping a garrison within Alesia and sending his field army to assist, he confined his entire force to the fortress. Perhaps it was pride or misplaced confidence in the impending arrival of reinforcements. Either way, he effectively trapped himself, just as Caesar was trapping him. As September commenced, Caesar's engineers began a feat never before attempted in military history. The process of encircling Alesia commenced with remarkable efficiency. The circumvallation, a fortification surrounding Alesia, began to materialize within just days. Constructing 11 miles of fortifications seems unimaginable, but Caesar's legions functioned as both soldiers and laborers. Each soldier was trained in construction and fortification techniques from previous campaigns across Gaul, yet this was no mundane task carried out in safety. Gallic arrows rained down relentlessly. Warriors surged from Alesia's gates, attempting to disrupt the construction. Roman soldiers sheltered behind their shields, digging with one hand while keeping weapons at the ready with the other. Picture the scene, trying to build a wall while under active attack. The specifics of Caesar's engineering showcase his genius. This was not a simple palisade. 2 trenches, each 15 feet wide and deep, were dug. The inner trench was flooded, creating a moat. Behind it, a 12-foot-high rampart emerged, complete with battlements and towers every 80 feet, approximately 350 towers along the entire circumvallation. Days 4 through 7 brought a flurry of desperate attempts by Vercingetorix to break out. He understood he couldn't allow Caesar to complete the encirclement. Massive assaults were launched on the incomplete sections, with 30,000 Gallic warriors charging Roman positions, desperate to break through before they were fully trapped. Yet the legions held firm, employing disciplined rotations while continuing the construction efforts behind them. In that moment, Caesar received intelligence that would change the course of the siege. Scouts reported a significant movement across Gaul. The relief army was forming, and estimates suggested it consisted of anywhere from 250,000 to 300,000 warriors. Caesar was faced with a harrowing decision: retreat from the siege or execute a daring plan. He opted for the latter. Caesar ordered the construction of a secondary line of fortifications, a contravallation facing outward, creating a fortress within a fortress. They would entrap themselves between Alesia and the advancing relief army. Examining the engineering particulars of these fortifications reveals an obsessive attention to detail. Beyond the ditches and ramparts, Caesar ordered obstacles designed to make any charge impossible. The gravestones were sharpened logs positioned horizontally at eye level. Any cavalry or rushing infantry would impale themselves upon their approach. Additionally, Caesar devised pits, 3 feet deep, filled with sharpened stakes hidden beneath brush. Thousands of these death traps concealed the approaches. Scattered in front of everything were iron spikes hammered into the ground at angles, functioning like ancient landmines, completely invisible until it was too late. Days 8 through 14 transformed into a desperate race against time. The relief army was confirmed, with dust clouds rising on the horizon and reports from refugees, highlighting the endless columns of warriors marching to join the fray. Caesar's men worked tirelessly, sacrificing sleep for the construction process. Exhausted legionaries collapsed at their posts only to be roused and immediately returned to digging. The Germanic cavalry engaged in constant skirmishes, buying valuable time. These daring horsemen became Caesar's scouts, traversing miles beyond the fortifications to gather intelligence. They returned with alarming news. The relief army was comprised of contingents from every major Gallic tribe. This was no mere force. It was a united nation in arms. Food shortages began to plague both sides. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix had to ration supplies. Outside, Caesar faced dwindling stocks. The brutal mathematics were stark. Feeding 60,000 soldiers and cavalrymen put immense strain on resources. Even with the Germanic foraging efforts, starvation seemed imminent. Then, an unexpected consequence arose. Doubts seeped into Caesar's ranks. Centurions reported murmurs among the soldiers. While they comprehended courage and the prospect of fighting against impossible odds, the notion of voluntarily trapping themselves and constructing their own prison provoked anxiety. Some pondered whether their commander had finally crossed the line. Caesar's response was reflective of his brilliance. He personally toured the fortifications, engaging with work crews, praising their determination and explaining his vision. "We're not trapping ourselves," he assured them. "We're creating a killing ground where Roman discipline will overpower Gallic bravado." The murmurs subsided. On day 12, the first assaults from the outer wall emerged. Advanced units of the relief army, likely scouts testing defenses, struck the contravallation. These were merely probing attacks, yet they underscored the daunting challenges ahead. The Romans would need to combat on two fronts simultaneously, an unprecedented undertaking. Soldier accounts from this period, eventually preserved in historical texts, speak of a complex mix of bone-deep fear and strange pride. They were engaging in the unimaginable, crafting something that would be studied for centuries to come. One legionary reportedly declared, "We're either constructing our monument or our tomb. Either way, they will remember us." What followed was a remarkable testament to Roman ingenuity and tenacity. As they prepared to face the formidable forces aligned against them in the annals of history,